Hello everyone, welcome to a Minecraft tutorial. In today's video we're going to be doing an Australian freight locomotive of the Bulldog type. Today specifically we're going to be doing the GM class, which is operated by Commonwealth Railways, Australian National, and it continues to serve today in limited capacity in some grain train rolls and other assorted railway things like that. So, what is this locomotive all about? So this locomotive is built to a 1.5 scale, which is a pretty normal in terms of Minecraft locomotive building. It is 5 blocks wide for the body, and it has some extensions such as these ladders and buttons. The tracks this locomotive sits on look like this. There are a gap of 1 block between the tracks, and the sleepers extend either side. So this will fit on generally all railways that are built to this scale. It not built for minecart tracks or anything, but yeah. So this is what we're building today. This was requested by the good Aussie 19, and if you too want to leave a locomotive build suggestion in the comments or a general train build suggestion, feel free to leave it below. I've got a lot more locomotives out here in my train building world, so if you also want to have your loco built, or yeah, leave it in the comments and I will definitely consider it. So yeah, let's get started. So to start with, the first thing we have to do is obviously build the bogies the locomotive sits on. So we'll come over here, we'll take the building materials off of what we have already, and across here we go. Alright, so you want to place 2 grey concrete like this, then space 2 between them, so you create a pattern like this. Oh dear. Sorry. I got a tutorial to make. So, space them like this, and then we have some andesite slabs. Very simple. We put them in the remaining blocks, keeping it 3 wide, and then we have our hoppers, which go over the grey concrete, like this. Very simple. Then we have the stone brick walls, which go across like that, and which create the little frame of the bogie itself. Okay, the next step is to go 12 this way. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then, just as before. Alright, so that very simply is what the frame of the locomotive is going to look like. We can go out 1 on this side. We can go out 2 on this side, but we won't be keeping that. And then the next layer is stone. So this is what the frame of the locomotive is, basically. So I have got World Edit installed. You don't need World Edit to build this locomotive, however it just makes the task slightly easier. World Edit is a very easy mod to install, so I do recommend it. Yeah, easy as, and we just have that like this. So that is the frame of our locomotive. Done. Obviously on Bedrock you can't get World Edit installed, however I do recommend it if you're playing on Java. So, and then next of all we're creating little fuel tanks and maintenance area that goes underneath the locomotive like this. Later on we'll add brakes in this, like over there, to add more variety to the undercarriage of the locomotive. So, and then we come over here. Easy as. So you'll find a lot of locomotives that I build will have a very similar frame to this, because yeah, they all look the same. So now we come along and add our andesite slabs in here. Just like that. So that very simply is the first bit of the locomotive done. Alright, the next part is very simply we have to start building the frame of the locomotive. Obviously you can see we add detail later, but we won't be doing that yet. So we're going to get our yellow concrete, our green concrete, and our dark prismarine slab, which will effectively allow us to recreate the livery of Australian National. So you want to come back here, so that is 5 blocks back from the end of the locomotive, to create that typical Australian National branding that was seen through the period and was very iconic for Australian locomotives. So then green concrete comes up 3 blocks just like this, and this will stretch the whole of the locomotive except for the cab, because we're not going to do the cab yet because the cab comes later. Yep, so there we have a little frame of the locomotive. Okay, and then we drag our yellow stripe along like this. And obviously, because the Australian National livery isn't that big on the locomotive, we take our dark prismarine slab. You can also use the other slab, the warp slab, which is basically the same colour and just adds more variety when you're building in here. Yep, so we don't need to, we can cap that off like that because we won't be using that bit. So yeah, that's what this looks like if you want to pause to make sure you've got it right. And then we want to start doing our roof. So we take our dark prismarine stairs and simply we do it like this. Now I do think there are 2 ways to do this. You could do another layer of slabs here, because this doesn't create the same sort of curved roof effect that the GM class of locomotive had in real life. However, I think it's the most reasonable approximation you can have. So next we take our stone slabs and we just basically drag them like this all the way down the end of the locomotive. So at the back end, if you look at historical photos of what this locomotive looked like back then, you will see it does have a back end which is very visible, to say the least. So we do our best to recreate this in Minecraft. So basically you just want to create a spotted pattern back here, with the exception of all the stripes at the back. So it's not it doesn't kind of show how the livery was in real life, but I do think it does a pretty good job. And then we can leave the gap for the door. I didn't mean to do that. Whoops. Green. Black, and then get our black stained glass and have it in there like that. So that's going to be the rear door for the locomotive. Actually, I do think that should be yellow. Yep, that makes more sense. So, very simply, this is what most of our locomotive is going to end up looking like. We're not going to start detailing yet. That is for once we finish the nose. So, that is what we're going to do next. So now we have to make the nose of our locomotive. So first of all, we'll get our green concrete and place it like this. This does touch the tracks, which I think is okay personally in my builds, but you may not like this aspect of it. So we create a little shape that looks like this, which is going to help us build our Bulldog nose for the locomotive. So then we come back like this. This will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold on. Yeah, like that. And however, this will come out again. Oh, have I? No, this is, yeah, I've done this too high. Later on, we will add our stripes with banners, but until then, we get our andesite wall and andesite slab. We just put our slab in like here to create a break, and we add our knuckle coupler with the andesite wall. So we'll create a little structure like this, and we can fill in this gap with green concrete, and we can come along up here. So you will notice how far this has come back. So we want to create the Bulldog nose basically like this, and we want to put our dark prismarine slab here and here, and have our green concrete like that. We will go over here and take our smooth sandstone stairs and put that like that. We will bring our green concrete like that, and then we can start filling in a bit of the gap in here. So this is the basics of what the Bulldog nose is going to look like for our locomotive. So then we want to start building the cab, obviously. So the cab is positioned 3 blocks back from right at the nose, so we will do the same. So start building it like that. Have our continue our stripe with green concrete, I believe. Yep. And then like that and like that, creating the nose, because the nose isn't flat, it's obviously round. Minecraft doesn't have curves, so we got to do our best. So then we come back to like that, back to like that, though we can clear out the space in here. We want to get some grey concrete and sort of try and create ourselves a little cab. I don't personally I chose that one, whoops. I don't personally do cabs too much because you don't really see them, but giving a little bit of impression that there is a cab here isn't too bad in my opinion. So yeah, you can add your own levers and dials if you want to, but obviously I have not. So then we have our green concrete. We inset these windows by 2 to create more of a 3D effect, honestly. Just try and make the side of the locomotive more interesting, because it's pretty flat as it is. And so then we have our little dividers like this to split them in different parts, and then we obviously need to have our roof line. So this birch slab will come 3 blocks back like this before it merges into that once again. And then we will bring this over like that. Yep, so, and then right on top of this we will add our dark prismarine slab. So if we go over here, we can see that this once again. Yeah. So we're just trying to create a bit of a tapered look up to the back. Obviously, you gotta fill in the gaps and make sure everything is looks nice, I guess. So yeah, so what you've basically done is you've created a pretty basic shell. So obviously we want to get the door, which is located 1 back from over here. So we come over here, we create a little indent where we want the driver's access to be. Extend the floor, just like so. Although we do want to leave our Australian national stripe through the locomotive, just like that. So then, technically, yeah, we're supposed to have 3 like that. Obviously, if you wanted to, you could put an iron door if you wanted to try and represent some sort of functionality. I personally think that sort of ruins part of the aesthetic, but obviously you can if you want to. So next we come along, we don't want the door to be 3, we want it to be 2.5, which is kind of more realistic, and to represent the door handle we're going to use a tripwire hook in there like that. Like that. So next is we're going to use birch fence gate. In real life, this locomotive doesn't have this feature really, but I do think it is worth having. It just sort of adds what looks like functionality to the locomotive. So you mirror on both sides. Okay, for the finishing part of the locomotive, we want to add are exhaust vents. These ones in particular aren't really based on an Australian National GM class, but we will add them anyway just because I think they look kind of cool, and if we have to build everything 1-to-1 scale, it begins to look a bit boring, to be honest. So what we want to do is we want to get our stone, and we want to create sort of an effect like this. So yeah, that's in real life this would basically be adding a radiator vent to the locomotive. I'm destroying so much more than I need to here, and causing myself way more trouble than I have to. Isn't that lovely? So then we come down here. Yeah, so as again, mirroring it right like that, and then we want to put our windows in. So we want to come two here from here, two from here. That centers them like that, and then we've got one more we can center in like that. So if all you're aiming to do is create a showpiece, or like this is when the locomotive first rolled off the production line, this is pretty close. However, we still do have to add the headlights and warning lights. So what I want to do is you can go on to minecraftheads.com and you can get these are complete. You can add them in the vanilla game. This isn't a mod or anything. These are completely free, and they are absolutely great, and also in addition for building intersections and stuff like that. So want to add our marking lights like this, you can also have them like that. So we have our traffic light yellow, that's what one's called. We have our traffic light off, traffic light red. Obviously these aren't their intended purposes, but we can use them for this anyway. So we want to have our red warning lights at the back like that, and they will just sit over like that. I've also missed the knuckle coupler for the rear of the locomotive, which sits on it like that. So yeah, that is what a pristine... Actually no, it's not. We haven't got to the end yet. So what we want to do to create this banner, banner, so what we want to do is get a loom. We can put that down there like that. We can get a green banner and some yellow dye. Oh, didn't mean to do that. So first of all, we can put stripe to the left, and then we want to get a stripe to the right. So that will give us what that is, and this will allow us to add the typical stripe that was seen on Australian National locomotives, and that particularly really does add to the front of the locomotive, and really it does the best representation of it we can do in Minecraft. So, and then what I want to do is also start adding a bit of greebling. This doesn't have to be in any particular spot. It's basically just has to go, you know, where there is free space. So you can do it like that. It doesn't really matter, you don't have to follow my exact tutorial, you just have to create a sort of showpiece, just allowing the locomotive to look a bit more interesting along the side, because it does look pretty plain here, obviously. So yeah, this is now a completed GM class. So this is what it looks like if this is like you just rolled off the production line. This is a showpiece. This is what you want it to look like without any modifications. Oh, we haven't done the roof bit yet. So yeah, so if that's all you want, but obviously I think it looks a bit better if it's a bit dirtier. Oh, it's been since the mid-90s it's been working on some grain trains, or it's been crossing the plains. These don't have to be too precise, you just want to create a bit of variation in the roof, really. Get our little buttons. Then we can create a thing that looks variously like this. So that's not the same as over there, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so pause now if you've missed anything, make sure... Oh, hold on. What we haven't done, again, I'm very good at this, is gotten our green banners, which will make sure this actually gets covered off correctly. So that is actually it, I believe, without any other things on it. But obviously I think it needs a bit more than that. So what we can do is get ourselves some green terracotta, green concrete powder, and just get to work kind of greebling the locomotive. So what you just basically want to do is just, with no real rhyme or rhythm, is just dirty it up, make the paintwork look a bit like this. You want to make it clear the locomotive's been working hard, it hasn't received a lot of treatment and hasn't been like washed in a while, basically. Because these things, they saw a lot of service. They lasted in Australian national livery right into the 2010s, in fact, and you'll see a lot of these pictures of these things working on broad gauge in South Australia during the 90s, and even some photos from earlier than that, and they look wrecked because they were driven into the ground, and no one cared for them because they were old locomotives. They don't produce as much power as modern locomotives did, and Australian National couldn't wait to get rid of them, basically. So you can thank Australian National for this. So that is pretty greebled, so now we can move on to yellow terracotta and yellow concrete powder. So we can create in there like that. It just adds a bit more variety and just kind of shows this locomotive has a bit of history. I mean, obviously it doesn't, I built it like now, but if it did, it looks good in rail yards if it's a bit dirtied up, because it shows that you've been thinking about its history, which I think is really important, because as much as building this locomotive is much a piece of history, or is showing history as much as anything else, really. So then we want to get our warp stairs, and we can just spread them along like this. And we've created an exceptionally dirty GM class of locomotive. Obviously in Minecraft you can't really show the difference between broad and standard gauge, so I imagine this will probably be on the broad gauge line between Adelaide and Melbourne sometime in the 1990s. It's looking pretty worse for wear, but it's doing its job. It might be on the Mount Gambier freight service, might be on I don't think the GM was ever on the Overland, but yeah, you can imagine it was like that. And then you don't have to do this one, but yes, I have got stone slab. So, and then you create little breaks in the fuel tank just to again add more detail. That's the name of the game here. So yeah, that is the GM class of locomotive built in Minecraft. I hope you enjoyed this video. Obviously, you can apply this formula to other classes of locomotive. You don't just have to have this cab. This cab will work if you want to build a Victorian A or B class, and New South Wales 44 class, I think. You can do that pretty easily. And if I go over here, so yeah, here is it in One Rail Australia livery. You can see it's more or less the same, and I'm quite proud of making it look like this, so you can actually see it's how it looks in real life, basically, and it's a pretty good approximation in my opinion. I do think GWA livery is quite hard to apply to locomotives. You can see, yeah, it looks weird like that, but it also looks weird the other way. You can do it like that. So yeah, so in conclusion, thanks for watching the video. I hope you learnt how to build a GM class of locomotive, and you can see the GM class here, and you can see the little siblings next to one another in the rail yard. And you can see down here is my original attempt to build one. I have gotten a bit better since then, as you might be able to tell. But thanks for watching the video. Please like, subscribe to the channel, etc. if you made it this far into the video. And I'll see you next time, maybe for another locomotive tutorial, maybe for some of the other videos on my channel. So, thanks.